Welcome to an exclusive interview on Bibliocracy Radio, where stories come alive and voices inspire change. Today, we're honored to feature an author whose story of faith, resilience, and unconditional love is inspiring families and caregivers around the world. Please join me in welcoming Coach Sam. Coach Sam, congratulations on your powerful book, He Never Complains, A Father and Son's Journey with Autism. This deeply moving memoir shares the heartfelt journey of a father navigating life after his son Xavier was diagnosed with autism. Through moments of uncertainty, challenge, and growth, you reveal what it truly means to choose faith over fear and perseverance over despair. What makes this book so impactful is its authenticity. It's not just a story of struggle, it's a testimony of strength, hope, and the transformative power of love. From early therapies to building a foundation that supports others, your journey reflects the resilience of a family grounded in faith. He Never Complains reminds us that even in the face of life's greatest challenges, there is purpose. It shows us that parenting a child with special needs is not just a journey of responsibility, but one of deep spiritual growth, love, and legacy. Coach Sam, thank you for sharing this incredible story with the world. Your message is giving hope to parents, strengthening families, and reminding us all that faith can carry us through even the most difficult seasons. Stay with us as we explore the story behind this inspiring journey and the powerful lessons within it, right here on Bibliocracy Radio.
It tells the story of a father's love, faith, perseverance, and the life-changing lesson he has learned through raising his sons, XAVIER. Coach Sam, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So, please can you introduce yourself to everyone listening to us now? And
okay, yeah. My name is Samuel Hutchins. I am the author. This is my first book of a book. It's a memoir. And the name of it is called He Never Complains, Sam and Xavier, a father and son's journey with autism. And it's about my son's journey with autism and the relationship that he and I had. My son also had a seizure condition, which back in 11/24, he fell and broke his neck, fractured his C5 vertebrae, and he died from complications from the surgery. He stayed in ICU for about 22 days, and around day 17, his organs started shutting down on him, and he passed away on 11/27, 11 days after his 32nd birthday. And this book is a tribute to the autism community and the spiritual community, not religious, spiritual community. And it's a story about perseverance and what I've learned and what I wanted to pass along to someone who may be just starting on a journey with autism or in the middle of a journey with autism, to give some answers to some of the questions that people had. Because when I first started, when Xavier was diagnosed in 1994, he was born in 92, diagnosed in 94. We had no idea, what it was that we had to do and how we had to do it, but a lot of life lessons were learned back then, and we learned then and through the process, and I put that in this book so to let people know what it's about, and sometimes about what it's not.
wow, that's very fantastic. Thank you about that. Okay, let's talking about experience. What inspired you to write He Never Complains and share your family story with readers?
What inspired me to write it is that the wealth of information that I gained through the life experience that Xavier taught me, me and his family going through, his mom, his siblings, and the community at large. It was like a partnership. And what inspired me to write it was because I knew when Xavier was first diagnosed in 94, of course I dove head first into everything I could learn about autism, which I didn't know much about autism, so I thought. But anyway, I bought a t-shirt, and the t-shirt said 1 in every 88 children will be born with autism. One of those children were mine. Fast forward in 96, that number had went from 1 in 88 to 1 in 64. So that meant
Okay.
that it was trending in the wrong direction, and something needed to be done. Some attention needed to be brought to it, not just where I was, but as a whole, but nationally, but globally. That something needed to be done. And as it stands right now, it's one in 2026. It stands 1 in every 34,
Okay.
which is 1 in 26 when it comes to boys. It's more prevalent in boys than it is girls, and so what inspired me to do it was, and like I said, the pillar of the Hope for Xavier Foundation is which birthed from this.
Wow.
One of the three things that we stand on is awareness and empowerment while empowering, and the awareness is the thing that we really harp on. That's why we have like workshops. That's why the Hope for Xavier Foundation exists, and that's why we have our Black Tie Gala every year, where we give away scholarships to people who are pursuing careers, not necessarily in the special needs field, but somewhere in the caregiving field. So
Okay.
that was what inspired. So that what inspired me. So my son, and what he taught me, that's what inspired it.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. It clears this book comes from a deeply personal and meaningful place. That's fantastic. So when
Yes.
talking about the movement, okay, can you take us back to the movement when you and your wife first learned that Axford had Austin? What was going through your mind?
Okay, what was going through our mind? But here was the thing. One of the characteristics about autism, especially when there's a two-parent household, and it doesn't happen all the time, but some of the time, the child will gravitate toward one parent for whatever reason, and I think it has more to do with trust than it does anything. But Xavier gravitated toward me, and so a lot of the stuff that his mom was seeing,
Wow.
I wasn't seeing, because the things like the interaction, and because she was always saying, she said something's not right with him. I said, what do you mean? She said, he stays to himself and he doesn't really interact with people. But
Wow.
see, I never saw that. See, because when I came home from work through the door, he was just so excited to see me. He would be jumping up and down, and then when he got to the age where he could walk, uh, but as soon as saw me come through that door, he made a beeline for me to pick him up. Of course, this was because Xavier wound up growing to be 6'4", 347 pounds. So of course, I wasn't picking him up all his life. But at 2, he would run to me, so I didn't see what she was seeing. And then one night we were watching TV, and Xavier, where he was always, he was sitting in my lap,
Okay.
and he kept putting his fingers in my mouth. And at this time, I just think he's just nonverbal because he's not talking. But his sister, she can talk to, like, after her first birthday. And Xavier was closer to his second birthday, but he was climbed up in my lap. And then he opened my mouth, and then he looked down in there, and he came back, and that was one of the few times I ever saw him cry, and a tear came down his eye, and I realized that what he was doing was he was hearing everybody in there talking, but he didn't understand why he couldn't talk. And
Wow.
that's when I knew. That was the moment that I knew. Then I said, "This thing." I saw it for myself, and I knew. Then I said, "The quality of my son's life rests solely in my hands." So I had to do everything that I could to make sure that his quality of life was the best that it could be, and that was one of the things that I preach about when people come to ask me to speak about autism. When I speak to civic groups, when I do speaking engagements, early intervention is the absolute key, and I will forever be responsible. I will forever be thankful for his biological mom for realizing that.
Wow.
Could you hold on for a minute?
I appreciate I appreciate your honest. I think many parents can relate to those feelings and emotions. Are you there?
Hello. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
So we appreciate your honest and think many parents can relate those feelings and emotion.
Yeah.
So
It was very emotional for us, because, like I said, it gripped at my heart when I finally saw it for myself, because his mom kept insisting that it's just something different. It's not, because he had an older sibling,
Okay.
and she would go into the room and he would just act like she wasn't there. But I
Okay.
never got that because when I went there, when I came into his room, like I said, he made a beeline for me. He expressed everything, so I wasn't seeing what they were seeing. But when that moment happened, I realized I see what it is that she was talking about.
Okay. So, when talking about the titles, the title "They Never Complain" is so powerful. What does that title mean to you personally?
Okay, for me personally, let me go back. It was that title actually came from a conversation I had with a friend of mine, Reginald Rutledge, at the job that I worked at called Safe Light.
Okay.
Uh, and at that time, he and I had been working together about 10 years. Of course, my whole conversation with everybody is normally about Xavier, and people would always say your expression is always changed to real happy and joyful when you talk about Xavier because. Well, let's face it, he was the center of my world. And Reggie said, he told me, which was ironic, he said, if you ever decide to write a book, he said, I know what you can call it. And I was like, what would I call it? He said, you can call it He Never Complains. I said, why you say that? He said, because all this time I've heard you talk about what you do for your son and how you love your son and you're going to do this. He said, I've never heard you complain. He said, so that should be the name of your book.
Oh.
Uh, but then when I started the writing process, and I said it wasn't me. I didn't complain, okay, to him, but Xavier never complained. So that's why I named the book He Never Complains.
Wow, that is a beautiful that's a beautiful and a lesson that speaks to all of us. So, as the biggest challenge, what were some of the biggest challenge your family faced, and how did your faith help you through them?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question. Say that again.
I say, what were some of the biggest challenge your family faced, and how did your faith help you through them?
One of the biggest challenges that we faced, I would have to say, would be preconceived notions about what people think they know about autism. And its limitation. The one thing about the autism spectrum, it is very broad. You got people that are highly functioning. Probably the most famous person is Temple Grand. She has so many different degrees, and she goes around the country speaking about autism, about what it is and what it isn't, because she's autistic herself. And as a matter of fact, if you get a chance, I'm pretty sure Netflix or Tubi or something, go Google it, and look at the movie Temple Grand, which is actually the name of it. It's the life and story of Temple Grand and how her intelligence level was so beyond what normal people's were. But
Wow.
her whole thing was she couldn't get people to understand, not really not understand, but accept the fact that she was
Okay.
autism because when they did, they put a stigma on it. Like she doesn't know what she's talking about because she's autistic.
Mm.
She couldn't be that smart because she's autistic. And that was one of the biggest challenges that we had. So with the school system, mainly overall, we had a great relationship with the school system, but I think that was because of the persistency that we had. We would always go to the meeting. We would always go, to the IEP meetings, which is another facet that's part of
Wow.
our special needs. The kids, again, depending on where you're on the spectrum, because I know people who are autistic on the spectrum, and they're fully functioning. But Xavier was on what we would consider the lower end because he would
Okay.
never be independent, mainly because he was okay.
Hmm.
He was nonverbal, and he had a seizure condition. So he was never going to be independent. But I know people who are independent on the spectrum and are doing very well. As a matter of fact, I was at an event this past weekend, and I spoke with a family that came to the Hope for Xavier Foundation for assistance in services that they were being denied because they were told that they weren't available. And I told them yes, they were. So I told them the steps that they
Oh,
go through. This was like 5 years ago, and I saw the young lady, and now she's getting ready to go to school for IT training to be an IT specialist.
wow. That sounds like a
So
faith.
yes,
Became an important source of strength during some very difficult movements. That's very amazing. So you went on to create the hopes or the hopes for XAVIER Foundation. What inspired
Right.
you to turn your personal experience into a mission that helps others?
Again, the thing that inspired me was, and this is another thing, is how my life was in the book. You see how my life was. God had been preparing me for this all my life. There was experiences that when I was growing up that I didn't understand. Why I felt the way I felt. And why was it so important for me to understand? So some of this stuff was as early as 10 years old. But one of the things that helped, that really inspired it, is that Xavier and I were in the grocery store one day, and we heard a commotion on the other end, and we could hear it. And then the voice sounded familiar because it sounded like my former next door neighbor. When I grew up, this lady lived next door to me. And so Xavier and I walked around, and she knew the Xavier story, and her son was having what society calls a meltdown.
Oh.
And I just thought, and I didn't know that he had autism as well. And it's ironic that her and I both live less than 100 yards away, right next door to each other, and both of us would have children that had autism, and both of them were boys.
Wow.
Which gets back to my point where I said it's more prevalent in boys than it is girls. But anyway, she was talking to me about, how well behaved Xavier was, and how, she was having a hard time. And I was telling her how important the early intervention was, because like I said, Xavier got diagnosed with 2. And her son at the time, he was 7, and he had just got diagnosed. And which is why, again, to come full circle, what I was saying, that's why early intervention is the key. And that's one of the things when we go and speak and when we set up vendor booths, we pass out this pamphlet in literature and about early signs of autism. And I tell anybody that if you see more than 3 of these signs in your child, you need to go have them diagnosed. Because the earlier you know, the better quality of life they'll have, and that'll be better for them. But anyway, her name was Wanda Emerson, and she was saying that we should start a foundation. No, she said we should start an organization to let people know about what you know about autism. Because I was telling her, about Xavier, and I said he was diagnosed at 2, and I said that early intervention really helped. Mm-hmm. And she said that she wished that she had started earlier had she known. And I said, yeah, but she said we should get that started. But at the time, I was unemployed. This was in 2008. I was unemployed, making $375 a week from unemployment benefits, and I was renting a place that was $700 a month. So there wasn't a whole lot of money. But anyway, as life would have it, 2 years later, Wanda passed away from complications from lupus. And my brother went to see her 3 days before she passed away, and she asked him, she said, has Sam finished starting that foundation yet? And my brother told her he's filed the state paperwork, but he hasn't gotten to the IRS website yet. And this is what she said. She said, when I get out of here, I'm going to help him finish starting that foundation. And 3 days later, she was dead. So that was became a component of the Hope for Xavier Foundation. We call it the Wanda Lene Emerson Thompson Scholarship Memorial Award, and we give that award away every year. Wow. We just celebrated our 10-year anniversary. Of course, Xavier passed right before the 10-year anniversary, so he wasn't able to attend that. But and I'm very proud. I mean, we're not a huge organization, but to date, we've given away almost $15,000 in scholarships. And why that's a lot. It's not a lot of money. You have to understand, we're a nonprofit, and it's only like 6 of us people, but we do fundraising, and that's what the gala is all about, because that's our biggest fundraiser. We sell T-shirts and merchandise and stuff like that. But the literature and stuff, we give that away. We don't charge for that. We give that away.
Wow, that's inspiring. It's wonderful to see how your family's journey has become a source of support for so many people. So, what will you say to parents who may have recently received an autism diagnosis for their child?
I'm sorry, say that again.
I said, what will you say to parents who may have recently received an autism diagnosis for their children?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand your question. Were you saying something about?
Wait, okay, let me do it like this. What do you hope readers take away from Xavier's complaints after they finish the final page?
What do I to take away from the book? The book is pretty much what I hope people take away from it is that perception is an absolute key. You can't the way you look at it and how you perceive your situation, be it autism, terminal illness, or a difficult problem in your life, your perception is very important. And how you perceive that is very important. And you have to have a spirit of resilience. You have to have a spirit of faith. And mine is rooted in my belief in God Almighty, because I don't know where I would be without God in my life. And Xavier taught me that, because because every day I saw a miracle. I lived with a miracle. I walked with a miracle. I lived with a miracle, because I see what God did to him. Xavier was a kid that he couldn't tie he was a young man. He couldn't tie his shoe, but he knew how to change the screensavers on a computer. He didn't know how to bathe himself, but he knew how to change the fonts on a computer. He knew how to play games. He knew how to play computer games, and that's why I say he was. I used to say it like this: that he was an enigma wrapped up in a riddle, wrapped up in a rhyme. He had a rhyme and a reason, and it was something amazing to behold, which left me knowing without a doubt. And Xavier knew how to type. He typed with two hands, and he typed from memory. He would read the newspaper, and mainly what he got was the advertisements. And he would just type the names of the stores that he saw in the advertisement, not with the newspaper nowhere near it. He would type it from memory, and he would know when he misspelled. And he typed with two hands, like he had typing lessons. And so I knew then that there was a God, and that this was a mission that God was putting me on, and He wanted me to be the spokesperson, to get this thing out about autism about. And before he passed, and after he passed, I can't tell you how many people have come up to me and tell me how the awareness of autism was brought to them by knowing Xavier, by knowing Xavier's story and being inspired by his story. Because one of the things that everybody always said, which is one thing we always hung our hands on, we were proud of, his biological mom, his bonus mom, his kid, his siblings, my kids, the whole community, and anybody that saw him, the first thing that they would say was, he seems like such a happy child. And we hung our hat on, because Xavier was very happy. And we try, again, the quality of life, and again, getting that early diagnosis is critical. It's not a death sentence if you don't get it, but the earlier you get it, the better chance and the better quality of life you and your child will have. Because when you talk about quality of life, it's not just the quality of life for that child, it's the quality of life for you as well. Because being a caregiver for a person of special needs, be it autism or, maybe something for physical disability, whatever, that caregiver needs an outlet too. So that's another thing that kind of gets overlooked. The caregiver and the parents, they have to have some, and that's why, what seems to be a small victory for some people, it's a huge victory for us. Like when they put something together, and Xavier was very meticulous about, about stuff. So yeah.
That's a powerful message and a wonderful takeaway for readers. And then before we close, when can listener find your book and learn more about your work?
You can learn more about my book. If you want to purchase it, it's on Amazon.com. You just type in "He Never Complains," and again, my pen name is Coach Sam. That came from because I coached YMCA basketball and AAU basketball for over 20 years, and kids now who are 30 years old still call me Coach Sam. It's on Amazon.com. It's also online at BarnesandNobles.com. Just type in the title "He Never Complains" and it'll pop up. And it's also on a website called Ingram Sparks. In all three formats, and there is an audio version that is coming out at the end of July. So if people don't like to read, you just want to listen to it, there will be an audio version as well. So that's what you get. And if you want to know more about the work that the foundation is doing, if you want to make a donation or something like that, you can go. We can be reached at Hope for Xavier, Hope for Xavier Foundation.org. That's HOPE number 4, not FOR, the number 4.
Wow.
Hope for Xavier, and the number, and that 4 stands for, because I got 4 brothers, and that's why I put the 4 in there. Hope for Xavier Foundation.org. And of course, we have a cash app. It's called $Hope for X. Of course, we're on Venmo. To Hope for Xavier Foundation at Venmo.com.
Thank you.
Yes, and that's pretty much all our social media platforms. Of course, we're on Facebook. We also have a podcast called It's a Rap with Reggie Sam podcast / Xavier's Journey podcast. Both of those are on YouTube, Spotify, and iTunes as well. So that is how you can get it. If you wanted to, just send an email. It's hopeforxavier@gmail.com. Or like I said, the website. We got a contact page on the website.
Congratulations on the audios. So thank you so much for that. So Coach Sam, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your story with us. It Never Comes In is a touching reminder of the power of faith, resilience, and unconditional love. We appreciate your times and wish you continued success with the books and your work supporting families affected by Austin. And thank you so much for our listener for joining us on Biblical Prophecy Radios. I'm Lisa Gordon. Until next time, keep reading, keep learning, and keep finding inspiration in the story that brings us together. Thank you so much, Mr. Sam.
Again, thank you guys for having me. You guys have a blessed day and continue a blessed week.
Thank you.
Thank you.